In June 1969, an uprising took place at the Stonewall Inn in New York City. As it was raided by the police in the early hours, 3 nights of unrest followed, with LGBT people, long frustrated by police brutality, finally fighting back. Lesbians and trans women of colour were some of the key people involved in the act of resistance. This anniversary is a reminder of the power of standing together in defiance of those who seek to divide us. A quote by Stonewall.
This Pride Month, we will be sharing with our Fluff community history, information, and methods of engaging with the Black Lives Matter movement. Without Black, Indigenous, and people of colour, the LGBTQIA+ community would not have the rights we have today, and we need to work together to create a safer world where no one is killed because of the colour of their skin. Hi, I'm Emma, she, her.
And I'm Jess, she, her.
And this is Fluff,
the podcast about friendship, love, unfortunate failure, and fun. You're looking very excited about your drink there, Emma.
I am actually quite excited for this drink, but I'm more excited about this topic. And I was trying to vocalize something. I was thinking of a chant, but then it didn't come out. I just did a woo.
No worries. A woo is vocalizing your enthusiasm and your energy for the topic of
activism.
Yes. So very current right now, activism in regards to Black Lives Matter movement.
Also environmental.
Yeah. Let's not forget climate change.
Yeah. It's around the corner, everyone.
Yeah. It's also Pride Month as well. So this might be the first time that people are either thinking about their activism, thinking about their privilege, or it might be, even for us, it's actually thinking more about using our privilege even more, or actually addressing our privilege and being even more active. Like, we are activists and we are very politically engaged, and we are very empathetic to minority groups and our own minority group, and don't allow certain things to pass in our conversations, like if anybody was being racist or anybody was being homophobic. But there's so much more that we can do. I think we need to dismantle horrendous systems. Everything. The world needs a complete reset. So we need to be active, people.
So before we even go into it, I want to define what activism is. It is the policy or action of using vigorous campaigning to bring about political or social change. And so what's really important about the word activism is the part of it that is active. It is not just, I want things to be better. It is not just being a caring person. It is not just being empathetic. It is actually campaigning for social change. It's more than being aware.
Absolutely. Or just having a chat around your dinner table saying, isn't it awful? Like, then putting it into action and believing that you can be a part of the social change and believing that political and social change can happen.
Yes, exactly.
And you might help change that through your learning, your education, raising awareness, speaking up. And being an activist it can feel like a full-time job. It can feel like a full-time
It is
thing.
many people's full-time job.
And it actually is. And that's the thing. I think growing up, I had something said to me within family circles such as, it's best not to think about that. And I think it wasn't until we were hit by experiencing homophobia, transphobia, until our circumstances change and we weren't as privileged as we were before, that you're like, we need to be a part of it.
I'm sure we were both raised in there have always been people who've said, I'm not into politics in my circles. But also I feel like being raised, not particularly by my parents, but sort of in a culture of, you don't bring up don't bring up politics at dinner table. It's not
classic
small
line.
talk. It's not, it's too divisive, or don't be too political.
And it is divisive, and that's really hard. Like, it might cause you to not get on with a family member, to have to break a friendship because you believe so differently.
Yes.
But I do take offence to people being silent and not standing up for human rights.
Because it's about more than beliefs for certain people. It's about their everyday experience. So if politics for you is something that's only about something you believe in, but it doesn't, if whoever is elected in doesn't impact your day-to-day experience, then that is something where you need to think about before saying, I don't believe in talking about politics, or I don't care about politics, because you're in a position of privilege.
Exactly. And if you're actively choosing not to engage in politics, then you are, there's one of the placards that I saw for the Black Lives Matter movement at a protest says, if you are silent, then you are on the side of the oppressor.
Yeah.
And that is true, because it's okay if you suddenly wake up one day and you're like, oh, fuck, I know nothing.
Yeah.
But then if you don't do anything about it, if you just carry on with your own life cycle and just saying, oh, but I just want to, laugh with my family. I just want to look after my kids. I just want to go to work and not think about it. I want to come home and have my dinner.
Yeah.
Like, people are suffering.
Yeah.
People are being killed. People are dying. People are being attacked. People are feeling shit. People are feeling awful. We've got to be active. We have to fucking change the world.
Yeah. There's the other one, which is like a shorter version. Silence is violence.
Yeah.
It is not a passive thing to be silent. It is actively being violent against the community that it's about. But this is we're not here to sort of preach at you.
Yeah, no,
it's got a bit passionate there.
Oh, I don't know why that came. I think it's because I wasn't talking to you, listeners, in that situation.
I know that this week I have had an incredible amount of angry moments on social media with people who are posting really ignorant and offensive things. So I'm finding it really hard to balance my emotions in relation to this topic, and I feel like you're in the same position.
Yeah.
And because we've been in situations where we've had to face this before, it is a bit like, ugh.
Absolutely. But I suppose part of activism is learning how to have efficient and constructive and productive conversations, and not just being hot-headed. Where I get hot-headed when I think of certain people I'm very close to, which is like, for example, I don't know, even family members, that would be like, oh, because I don't want to fall out with them.
Yeah.
And that's why, sorry listeners, my emotions overcame me there. But also is thinking about, hang on a minute, is my anger going to help? Because, for example, Black Lives Matter movement, Black people have a right to be so angry, to be devastated, to not want to listen to white people anymore, because Black Lives Matter movement is all about white people putting in the effort to dismantle the system. It's a white problem.
Yeah. But also the other thing is, activism is not about having conversations at the dinner table. Activism is about policy change and change, social change, which means it's systemic. So that one person that is a bigot in your circle, or your external circle, I hope, fighting it against them is so important, but it is not the fight of an activist.
Yes.
This is about talking to your member of parliament, talking to your government, talking to your institutions of employment and study, and changing it there.
Exactly. Like, if you, even for example, J.K. Rowling, author of Harry Potter, her transphobia this week, it's then thinking about, okay, so I could engage in, obviously Twitter is quite a place of back and forth horrible comments.
Yeah.
But then it's thinking about, okay, as an activist, who do I need to write to try and help dismantle J.K. Rowling's power, or J.K. Rowling's ability to spread transphobic comments?
Yeah.
Like, do I need to write to, I don't know, for example, a friend said to me about more films are coming out, The Fantastic Beasts.
Yes.
So they said about Warner Brothers, is that like, boycott them? Like, what are you going to do to help?
Or not make it about that one individual. If J.K. Rowling is a product of society, J.K. Rowling isn't the only TERF, which is the person against trans people. So she's not the only anti-trans person in the world. She's just a person with power. So instead of specifically making it about her, which actually in some ways gives her more power, make it about supporting the trans people in your community.
Absolutely, because the weight of her words will cause more people to be transphobic now. And so now, putting your energy into raising
change.
awareness about trans identities and education
And fighting policy change, because we do know at the moment that there is a bill trying to be passed that changes like specifically toilet rights and rights of young trans people to access medical support. And that is something that is being done at governmental level. And everyone's talking about J.K. Rowling, but I haven't seen as much about that bill from people outside of the trans community.
Absolutely. So, again, focusing more on the political spheres that you can write to, get in contact with, the petitions that you're going to sign. And, so I suppose, I think that's a really good point, Emma, to focus it back to, but where's actually going to change? Where is draining and causing you anger, and where is more likely to help support the minorities, or the people who are oppressed.
Yeah, exactly. This is quite a big opening.
And intro over.
Yeah.
What are we drinking?
Well, I've just realised actually our drink of choice today is quite poignant based on the person we're drinking to. We are drinking clean drinking water.
H2O.
H2O. Water, everyone. I know we're shocking you this week.
I've got about 500 mils. I'd say you've got a little 150 mils.
But yeah. So we're drinking clean drinking water, which is something that not everyone in the world has. And who we are drinking to this week is another Canadian, Autumn Pelletier, who campaigns for fresh drinking water for Indigenous people. So Autumn, I thought it was really interesting to bring up this young person because we all know of Greta Thunberg, and her amazing climate activism. But there are so many other young activists who have been just as loud as Greta, but haven't had the same following. And often it is, again, comes back to race. So this is a young Indigenous girl. I know that there's a young Black girl from Flint, Michigan, who's been campaigning, but hasn't had the same platform. Autumn has spoken at the UN as well multiple times, but you rarely see or hear about her outside of maybe if you're in that specific activist community. So Autumn is 15 years old, Indigenous clean water activist. She is a member of the Wikwemikong First Nation in Northern Ontario, living on Lake Huron, which is where I'm from. Pelletier actually is someone who has always had access to clean drinking water, part probably because she lives on Lake Huron, which is part of the biggest system of freshwater lakes in the world. But she knows that others are not so lucky. She says, we keep seeing and hearing that the First Nations communities that can't drink their water, that it's contaminated from pollution and pipelines breaking. One day it really affected me and I actually cried about it. After this revelation, Pelletier began to advocate for the universal right to clean drinking water. At 8 years old, she became an activist.
Amazing.
She learned from her aunt, who helped to protect the water, to advocate and raise awareness for water conservation. So what she's done a lot to raise awareness of water rights and ensure communities have access to safe drinking water. She met with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in 2016 and in tears insisted that he do more to prevent Canadian communities from consuming unsafe water, because this comes in light of our Prime Minister at the moment has endorsed several pipeline projects which endanger First Nation communities.
Oh, Trudeau.
Remember, he is not the hero that everyone thinks he is. He's better than some, but he's not the best. Because of these specific pipelines, over 100 Indigenous communities received boiled water advisories. So instead of fixing it, they say boil your water first before you drink it. Which is
that's horrific.
Absolutely outrageous that in the developed world, a country with wealth, that there are people who don't have clean drinking water. It is a fundamental human right.
What gives them, again, is saying that we deserve it more than you, or we want our pipelines more than we care about you just having access, easy access, quick access to clean drinking water. That's basically telling them that you don't matter.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is telling them you don't matter.
Yeah. So in 2018, Pelletier travelled to the UN General Assembly in New York and addressed the UN on water rights. Some of the things she said was, water is the lifeblood of Mother Earth. Our water should not be for sale. We have a right to this water as we need it. Across these lands, we know somewhere where someone can't drink the water. Why so many? Why have they gone without it for so long? So, this glass of clean water, because we are recognizing that we have this access just from our taps, like so incredible, is to Autumn Pelletier.
Autumn Pelletier.
And it's good.
Yeah.
It's fresh.
Yeah. And everyone should have access to it.
Yeah. And so she's an activist at 8 years old.
That's
so
amazing.
everyone who's over 8, you're already behind.
Yeah.
But it's never too late or too early to start.
Absolutely. And I think that's the great thing that is happening now in terms of, yes, privileged people, I hope, are thinking about it and how they can be more active in supporting the world. I think it would be even better to leave this world knowing you've done your bit, or like you've tried really hard to help for social change and political change.
And the thing is, so much of the time, the people that we sort of revere as amazing activists, they weren't doing it because they just wanted to help. They were doing it because they were fighting for their own rights.
So it's about fighting for the rights of others. They didn't have a right
to decide to do it.
Yeah.
So if you're in a position where you don't think, anything directly impacts me, you have the power to help other people. But, you know, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King Jr., they're fighting for their own rights. They were not doing this because they wanted to be activists.
So, reframe your thinking into, I have a voice to help support these people.
Exactly.
I'm going to fight for other people's rights.
Yeah.
And I didn't learn about politics at school. I seem to remember maybe having a couple of sessions on it. But I left school, and then my one boyfriend that I had, his family were very politically engaged, Labour supporters. And around the dinner table, it was very much discussions about politics, discussions about Labour's policies, comparisons to the Tory policies. And I suppose I just heard a family really caring about their community and caring about the manifestos and caring about the policies that were impacting on people. And it was honestly like one of my first learnings, and also seeing people my age and also the younger siblings being really engaged in this more than I was.
Yeah.
And I was like, I actually don't know much about this. And that's when my political engagement started, and I'd say hit peak at university, which was very hard not to be political in, and you just opened up to so much. And I saw my first picket lines, people were organising protests, we were going on protests, there were information stalls within the university. We're learning now, maybe not for all the right causes, such as Black Lives Matter wasn't protested for it, nowhere near enough until we left uni. That's when...
Yeah, in our last year.
Yeah, but definitely I'd say LGBTQIA plus rights were quite of a big focus when we were at uni, but that's just when I started learning more and more about it and became more politically engaged and started learning, and had a girlfriend who then said, why do you have to make everything so political?
Yeah.
Can you just please stop talking about politics for once? Which, as a gay person, and that was maybe again, but how can you not?
Good riddance, I'd say to that. I first remember learning, and I've been reflecting on this a lot recently, grade 5, Mrs. Rogers' class, June Avenue Primary School. I can literally picture the textbook that it was in, where I remember learning about an activist as a job, like as an occupation you could have growing up, which I think is interesting because it was given the status, there was a status of a important job, but it was also then something that you either were or you weren't. So it was like, I can't be a doctor and an activist because it's a job that you have to like do.
Right, interesting.
And I just remember thinking about it, and we had to do a project on it, and I've always been aware that it's something that you could do, and I have always been quite a political kid. I used to just sort of learn things at school. I think it's partially because I loved history and I took all the history courses.
Yeah.
And I used to just come in after learning something about the world and sort of drop a bomb at dinner. I remember saying to my parents, well, religion sucks because it caused every war that ever happened in history. Great. My parents were quite Christian. My mum would panic because she grew up in a don't talk about politics at dinner. My dad was very much, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
But I specifically have a moment remembering after being at university where I became even more political, being at home on one trip home and sitting at a dinner table with everyone and talking, I think talking about environmental policies. I don't even remember specifically what the political topic was at that point because there was always something. And my dad said something where he was like, I don't think what we do, and I don't think he meant it this way, but sort of was saying, individual small actions don't matter. It's about policy change. It might have even been about veganism in relation to the world.
Yeah.
And he said something that like was like, so it doesn't matter what we do in our life, you just have to vote the right way. And I got so upset. I cried, and everyone left the table, just left me, my brother-in-law and my dad talking about this for like another hour. And I just remember this being such this big moment, and everyone who didn't like conflict left. And yeah, and then now studying sociology, we had a week where we talked about this concept called the feminist killjoy, which is where if you're someone who's politically engaged, there's like an expectation that you are going to be a killjoy.
Yes.
Because you're always going to bring it back to the reality of whatever the political issue is at that moment.
Yeah.
And there's like a fear of being that downer, that not having a sense of humor, sometimes people might say.
Yeah.
And reading that, I was like, oh my God, that's me. And the great thing was everyone in my course was like, that's me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think dinner tables are like a really interesting part of an activist journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And the feminist killjoy, that links to the snowflake concept.
Oh yeah.
Of 2016, I think, was when it kind of first came out, the snowflake generation, which basically refers to millennials who are seen as being oversensitive, who are seen as being weak. I think actually I have got here a definition because it's in the dictionary.
Is it?
It's in the dictionary.
As snowflake concept?
Yeah. So Cambridge Dictionary says a way of referring to the type of young people who are considered by some people to be too easily upset and offended. But it is a derogatory term.
Yeah.
It is an insult. It is stereotyping.
Yeah.
And
I just realised I have a snowflake tattooed on my back.
yeah. However, but the snowflake generation are the generation with the highest youth turnout in the 2017 UK general election.
Yeah.
So whilst you might be calling them the snowflake generation, it was the highest youth turnout in 25 years at the general election. Yeah. And that is because this generation are more dedicated to ending injustice. The snowflake generation, for example, or the young people, our youth, are facing even more challenges in terms of we're living in a global recession, house prices are going up, rentals going up, and jobs are not as available.
There's like less opportunity, whereas our parents grew up in the sort of economic increase, the like post-war boomer time where everything was like not here necessarily the language of, but there's the idea of the American dream. You can own your house, you can have your kids, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That was problematic for them in their own ways, but I think kids... I mean, from teaching kids, there is not a kid I've ever taught that doesn't know the political issues at the moment. Yeah. Like, Donald Trump comes up all the time in schools. They know who the leaders are. They know who what the problems are.
Exactly. Like, because climate change is getting worse and worse, so that is being spoken about. So young people do know about it. And we are starting to stand up against institutionalized racism
and the sensitivity comes from it being painful that people don't recognize that that there are lives at risk because of these issues.
So the empathy is so strong. Yeah. But it actually was popularized in the US during the 2016 US presidential election.
Yeah, of course it was.
Of course. So people who were considered anti-Trump, liberal or left, this is where the snowflake term came out. And interestingly, the UK Army used snowflake as a recruitment in their advertisement. So I'm just going to show Emma here. But basically, the snowflake one, so it's got such things as binge gamers, your army needs you and your drive. Phone zombies, your army needs you and your focus. Snowflakes, your army needs you and your compassion. So
weird.
It's really... And there's a lot of controversy over it. Basically from both sides, people just think like this is a weird way to platform it. People didn't agree with it because they were like young millennials to think, you just think we're binge gamers, you just think we're phone zombies, you just think we're snowflakes. But so that was used as a recruitment. But again, that's just spreading this derogatory term because actually, thank you, young people, thank you, youth, for being engaged, for learning, for caring. Because again, like, you now know that people have been suffering for so long, minority groups have been suffering for so long, you know that the world is combusting.
I
and
think
you care about that.
There's more access to information now
Of
than
course.
there ever has been, and education has changed. So of course the young people growing up now are more engaged with issues than they would have been in the past. But I will tell you that everything that has ever changed in the world has happened through activism and through protesting and through rebellion. But so many have started because of young people. I have a list here of, the article is called Youth in Revolt. Again, it's a National Geographic. And it's about 5 revolutions and movements fueled by young activists. And I think you'll be shocked to know which ones. Well, not shocked, because of course they started with young people who want... I suppose there's also something about having your whole future ahead of you and not wanting it to be the shit that you see it to be now.
Or knowing, you don't want other people to experience that.
And not trained, you've not been conditioned to think nothing can change. You've not been conditioned to hate the same way yet. So I think there's like, it's seen as opportunity. So number 1, the civil rights movement. So massive. The March on Washington, the lunch counters, the bridge in Selma, Alabama, all of these bits of the civil rights movement were managed by young people and student organizers. So that's
amazing.
Where you have universities as well, where you have that kind of education, it's often young people can come together with like-minded things and fight back. This one actually is almost always characterized to be young people, so people won't be surprised, but the Vietnam War protests were led by young people. Tiananmen Square, again, was all young people.
I don't know about that.
So Tiananmen Square was in China, and it was Tiananmen Square was actually the sort of violent breakdown of the protests where loads of people were killed, but it was swept through China as youth demanded democratic reforms and economic liberalization. In the face of economic decline. Hundreds of thousands of activists, mostly university students, took to the streets with banners and speeches and song. Tiananmen Square was that on June 3rd, 1989, emotionally charged protests took a terrifying turn when thousands of soldiers descended on Tiananmen Square and opened fire on unarmed students. I don't know how many were killed, but that was a student-led movement. The Arab Spring was led by students, which was in Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, Yemen, Syria, Bahrain, and lots of Middle Eastern countries. This was frustrated by police corruption, economic woes, human rights violations, and oppressive regimes. Youth took part in a wave of pro-democracy protests that turned public plazas into sites of struggle. They were sparked by the death of a young Tunisian. Young people weren't the only people involved, but they were the sort of largest group again. And then inspiration from today, Indigenous water rights. Have always been fought by young people.
Amazing.
And it says here, this quote, youth are tired of thinking that they don't have a future.
And I suppose social media as well, it's all just, they've got more tools and resources in order to spread the education, to widen their platform and to speak out. So I suppose rather than, this, as we see through history, but even more so now, people can help recruit and get people onto the activism.
I think the word snowflake is so interesting because it's a simple term that's been used to weaponize as well as completely dismiss any of these concerns. There's a really interesting episode again of Explained called Political Correctness, which is a concept that only came in the 90s in response to political activism. So it didn't exist before and has become a term that bigoted people can use to say, like all this political correctness, like blah blah blah, it's just words, it doesn't matter. But what's really interesting, and also having now studying this in university, language is possibly the most powerful tool that we have to create ideas and then also dismiss ideas. So it's through language that we create culture and we create society. And so saying, oh, I just can't get the terminology correct means you can dismiss a whole identity. You can dismiss a whole way of living. But also saying things like political correctness and snowflake means that you can create a way of talking about people who are sensitive and caring in a weaponized kind of way.
And again, generally that's might feel like for the younger generation, they're the ones who then, because of the power of age, it feels like the elders are like, you just don't know, you just haven't experienced life yet. And it's like, but it feels like you have never actually educated or engaged yourself in what we know about. You've chosen not to, or you aren't aware, and now you're putting just a block in it, and you're just using your age and your status just to shut me up.
And or you fought for something in your youth and achieved a certain level of success and now think that that's enough because you've conditioned to think that way. Like, for example, the suffrage movement for women's rights was huge, and women won the right to vote, but there are so many other systems where it's written in that women are not equal to men. But I imagine those who there was then a sort of post-feminist belief that oh, well, we've got the right to vote, we've got the right to work, what more do you want? That's cool, that's huge, we've come so far. And then there's this new generation saying, but that's not enough. Can be quite confusing.
Well, it's like selective activism, but if you can empathise with one active movement, the feeling of or knowing that people are being oppressed, that people do not have the same rights as you or other people, like basically it's all coming down to the same thing, like oppression and people being hurt, people dying, people suffering from mental health because of their position. So if you can empathise with, say, one community or one group, try and apply those same feelings is what we need people to do across all people who are experiencing oppression or don't have equal opportunities.
But I guess my point is that there are people who just don't believe change can happen because they've seen change to a point and think that that's as far as it can go. So I can imagine that there are people who are older who think, well, we're not going to get any better. Stop trying because that's a wasted energy. Which doesn't mean that anyone who's a non-activist older person, therefore, is anti-change or is sort of anti the things that you care about. But they just might not have the same hope or vision.
Whereas during Extinction Rebellion, that was during the summer, wasn't it? That we had a series of protests and demonstrations, whereas there was that great older chap who led it, and then lots of older people who were retired were saying, actually, I have the time now to be active. I have the time to go and sit and strike, or I have the opportunity to... I walked past the older chap who was in his 90s, and he was sitting on top of a tube at Canary Wharf. He was like, I've got the time to do this, so actually... And he was rallying older people who's like, come on, we haven't got anything to do right now. We are sitting at home. We are retired. So let's go and fight. And now's our time.
There was the old man who sat outside 10 Downing Street for weeks and weeks without eating. He did a hunger strike, literally sitting outside 10 Downing Street because he was like, well, I'm fighting for my grandkids' future. Which is stunning, horrific and stunning. and I think, we need to give more credit to people of all ages, of all backgrounds, for their support. And that you can start this journey at any point.
And I think, and continue growing, like, you're not just going to be, maybe even the activist that you want to be. Like, I still have so much learning to do. I definitely need to work on my conversations and my communication in terms of how I can sit down and have a constructive conversation. And that might be difficult, and not fumble on my words. Like, where do I place it? Like, trying my little angry outbursts, like, it's all so shit. How to constructively help, because that's what's going to help.
But also knowing how to conserve your energy, because I think we live in a time, I heard a lecture that said we're in a time of post-truth, which is where there are people who believe the earth is flat despite scientific evidence. There are people who say climate change isn't happening in spite of scientific evidence, and they can just dismiss what you say by saying, well, my opinion is this. That's your opinion. I reserve the right to my opinion.
Free speech.
Yeah, exactly. And so you need to sometimes be able to go, oh, do you know what? This conversation is going to exhaust me. This person will never change. how can I use this energy in a way that's actually more productive?
Yeah. This goes back to, if you're not the person experiencing the oppression, then you might have more energy for that. Because, for example, with Black Lives Matter, I know a lot of Black friends who are saying, I'm so tired. And also they have experienced racism. They experience it all the time.
Yeah.
So we as white people have more of the energy right now to do this, because Black people have been fighting against racism for years. So it's, if you are not as immediately triggered or offended or impacted by that or hurt or devastated, then you can then be that person to step up and take on that role.
Yeah. I wonder, is this the moment as well to come up to whack out the word intersectionality and teach what that means?
Yes, I love it.
So intersectionality is a term coined by a woman named Kimberly Crenshaw, who's a feminist lawyer. I think it was in maybe the late 80s, early 90s where this word was used. And it's to refer to how there is an intersection between all types of oppression. So this is to say that the systems that are oppress people, like our culture, our government systems, they oppress all different types of people. And so including women, including Black people, including Indigenous people, including LGBTQIA plus people, disabled people. But that there are people who then live between those communities. So you might be a Black disabled lesbian, which means that all three of those fights matter to you.
Yeah.
And the problem that we live in at the moment is that we put in a position where we have to prioritize one fight over the other, maybe because that one is the one that you experience more frequently or seems to be a bigger issue at the moment. But that ends up pitting them against each other. So instead of everyone targeting the one system together, it's like this whole Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter, because people are saying, oh, well, it's also about Indigenous people, or it's also about disabled people. Of course it is about them, but we want to talk about supporting Black people. Yeah. It's about making sure that those communities are supporting each other, and we're dismantling the entire system. Yeah. So you often hear things like intersectional feminism, meaning that it's not just about women versus men. It's about understanding that oppression applies to different women differently.
And unfortunately, the first waves of feminism were supporting white women, so they weren't intersectional.
And very classist. I mean, the first wave of women who could vote, for example, where had to be white, had to be of a certain class, and there was lots of women. It wasn't everyone having the right to vote.
And we're always going to be building. We're going to be building for hundreds of years to come, because we're not in an equal society. We're not in a globally equal world. And what type of activist might you be to do that? Because there's 4 types of activists that I've got here, Emma.
Yeah.
So we have your radical activists, your idealists, your opportunists, and your realists. And I think it's important to reflect on these. And also you might find that you might have a little bit of that activist in it. And let's think about where we might need to be. So your radical activists, so these are your activists who do not trust the government to protect the people or the environment from the interests of big business. So their larger goals are characterised as social justice and political empowerment. Idealists, this says here, can be the most difficult activists to deal with, because idealists tend to want a perfect and ethical world and know what that might look like, but aren't necessarily putting in the influence over the public and over the policies and over the media. So therefore, an idealist might need more education and thinking about their activism. Sure. So I know this is the perfect world, but how am I actually going to help change it?
Yeah.
Help bring about that social and political change. The opportunists, engaging in activism for your own gain. So there's a lot of like performative activism, which is being spoken about now.
Yeah, lots of definitions about that.
Yeah, so how much are you sharing on social media has anybody still maybe posted the black square on Blackout Tuesday but hasn't yet done any further work?
Yeah.
So that's about thinking about your own visibility, how you portray to people. Maybe people might look for financial gain over it. And
a really great example of that is like called pink washing, where during Pride Month, companies make everything rainbow so that they actually sell more, and it's not actually about supporting LGBT.
Yeah, and that money
people.
just goes back into their profit.
Yeah.
Rather than towards LGBTQIA plus communities. And then realists are the key to most public affairs and public education campaigns. They're the ones who are willing to work and most open to negotiation. They'll work within the system and are often willing to enter into partnerships that wouldn't pass muster with idealist or radical activists.
Yeah, there's some problematic things in a realist as well. I mean, so a realist is someone who would take a deal as long as it's getting some of their rights across, which sometimes can mean that people think it's achieved afterwards, or people stop fighting afterwards for what the actual outcome is. So there's sort of like two sides to that. I think I saw something today where it's like, it's okay to turn up and get it wrong, just turn up and then try again. Yeah.
So it's that whole thing about I think we will be in a big period of reflection now for going forward.
Yeah.
Constantly thinking back to how you can help support systemic change. And I think the whole idea is it's better to make a mistake than not do anything at all.
Oh gosh, yeah. But I guess my fear of realists is just reminding them that the fight isn't over even after you've achieved one success.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then learn from that and think, how can I put that towards something else now?
And that's not necessarily the activists, that's the people who then, it's the other side.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So like, if you have campaigns and you know you're not going to get the final goal, but let's do this baby step.
Yeah.
The problem with settling with that is that company, that corporation thinks they've done the thing now.
It's like ticking boxes. For example, are we going to ask all of our employees to put pronouns in their signatures?
Yeah.
But then what else have you done for wider equality?
So I think ideally in your group of activists, you have all four types. Well, maybe not opportunist, but you have three of the types in there.
Yeah.
Because you do need the idealists who are the big thinkers who see help design the perfect world, because sometimes there isn't a halfway meet.
Yeah.
And you do need the radicals who are going to act radically. Yeah. That's what we're dealing with right now.
Well, take in Bristol the statue that's been torn down of
Colston.
Thank you. But now there's been a big wave of other statues being pulled down, or people saying they're going to be pulling statues down.
Yeah.
Which links back to people who maybe enslaved people or profited off enslaved people, who have paved the way for a white supremacist society.
I guess the issues around realist, or that I have around realist, is that every movement that's actually made change has come from a radical side.
Yeah.
Right? So the suffragettes, women were literally killed by horses trampling them. They were chaining themselves to buildings. Likewise, the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King was shot. Like, people died for that right.
I was going to say that when I was looking at the most dangerous type of activism, and it just reminded me that actually, of course, it's the people who die from it. It's the people who are imprisoned for their activism. And maybe that then gets a lot of media attention, and that's when maybe the changes might start to happen because something so awful has happened, which is then that's a really interesting thought, because it's like, are we forever going to need people to be radical? Are we ever going to have those people who are like, I am prepared to lose my life to be an activist for this?
Yeah, there is a side in feminist theory and culture theory that sort of explains we cannot have equality in our current systems. It just is impossible, because it is a system designed on power and oppression. Mm-hmm. So we will always need someone to die for it if we keep our current systems. What we need is a full-on revolution. And that doesn't mean violent, but it means that we have to completely restart. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that that's possible.
And I suppose, but then not... Yeah, it feels like, how do you change the world?
Exactly.
How do you change the world?
Exactly. Which is what can be quite overwhelming about starting an activist journey.
Yeah.
Because you do feel like the responsibility of every future, like the future and everything, is on your shoulders. But also, it's quite hard because you are against every bit of history, against everything that's come before you.
And this is the campaign for defund the police at the moment. And so that would need a whole overhaul of the police system. So this is saying that basically, say the police are not trained specifically in areas such as mental health, in areas such as responding to people who might have experienced abuse, sexual abuse. So by actually having first responders who are trained specifically in how to support this person, like they don't need somebody to come up, a policeman to come up and not have the right language to support this person who might be having a mental health crisis, for example. Like, take the funding from the police to go in there and actually put back the funding to social workers, put back the funding to
the care networks.
The care networks. So that is what the Defund the Police movement is about. It's the police will always be funded to do the work that they need, but it's saying that actually they're not needed to do all of this work. Actually, what if somebody came in and then took that person to a safe space, gave them a cup of tea, gave them a good night's sleep, and then walked through a care plan with them going forward?
Yeah, like, I guess sort of, I feel like I've gone quite pessimistic, but because I do genuinely believe in activism. I know we both we do the type of theatre we do because we believe our theatre has to be political and making a statement and helping people, and it's a platform, and that's what we're doing with Fluff as well. But the problem with small change in the current system is that it's always been granted access. It's always someone in power saying, okay, we'll let you do that now, which doesn't change the power structure. And so if you think of gay marriage, for example, which doesn't exist. Marriage is marriage, but you were given the access to this privilege that straight people have now. Yeah. Therefore, the power balance has not changed. It's just that some gay people can now marry, but there was still the ability to take that away.
Yes, which is the same with, which can be like what's happening with young trans
with civil rights, same with trans people, same with all of them. It's been same with women's right to vote. It was granted to you because we have the power to give to you, and that's sort of getting change within the current system. So it makes you feel like you've achieved something, but who still has the power? The people that gave it in the first place.
And the people with the power is still like society's little pawns that they're just moving around. They might be like, oh, we'll give them that, but we're actually also doing all of this at the moment, and it's fine. Like, we can, and they might literally say, we'll change it now, but we can change it back if we need to.
Exactly.
And we said the other day, we're like, how many Netflix documentaries do you need about Donald Trump?
Right.
For everyone to understand that he is a villain. A villain. Committed so many sexual assault crimes and is clearly just stupid and horrendous. So, but how can we all know how bad he is? But yet he's still there because
we're tied. There's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah. But I suppose, you can't stop.
Yeah. So for me, activism is not so much about imagining you can change the world, because that's so much pressure on you, but it's about how do I make the world easier for me to live in? How do I live with myself? But also, how do I do everything I can to protect the people who can't stand up for themselves?
Yes, absolutely.
So it's quite hard to imagine it all changing in our lifetime, unless there's like an apocalyptic meltdown.
Yeah. Which may well happen.
And then the right people rebuild.
I think you're right, Emma. Like, the Black Lives Matter movement over the past week has taught me about how do I take my conversations that we have, or my abhorrence of learning about, how do I take my conversations with friends about how terrible the world is into actually doing more. Like, as I said, we realise that we've always thought about systemic racism and spoken about it. I think we've also been learning about it still more. And now it's like, okay, how can I literally keep going and helping? And I think for me, I'm just remembering about writing to MPs, writing to people. And then supporting people who maybe are active but can't write to people. So
how to put the active back in activism.
How to put the active back in activism.
I've got two things to bring up before we go on to how to be active in activism, because I think we've both got some tips about how to engage. But there are sort of two things that have come up especially in the social media age, is the idea of slacktivism and also performative activism, which are things just to look out for if you are a person listening thinking, oh, I want to get involved, or thinking I don't have to, I already do these things. But let's just make sure that you're doing the right things. So slacktivism is defined by the UN. It's an official term, which is support a cause by performing simple measures but not necessarily being engaged or devoted to making a change. So you can also call it clicktivism or armchair activism. So basically, slacktivism is a way to voice your opinion about a certain cause without taking it to the streets or actually risking your neck. Is it a viral hashtag you're retweeting? It's also like the pink ribbon on your shirt, the rainbow colored frame on your Facebook picture, the Save the Turtles petition you signed last week. Yeah. These are all examples of slacktivism. It's almost always people with the best intentions, but it is not necessarily affecting change.
Yeah.
So it's come up a lot in social media. The Blackout Tuesday squares posted by white people is a really great example of slacktivism. But it's also an example of performative activism, which is worse than slacktivism, because slacktivism is I care, but this is the extent that I'm doing. Performative activism is showing you care because you want the either out of fear for not showing it or because you want the praise of showing that you care.
Yeah. Oh, like I've just remembered people going to protests at the moment. If you're a white person and taking selfies and then quickly uploading it to Instagram, like, no, that is not why you are supposed to be at the protest.
You're not there to show yourself in the protest. You're there to support. And obviously there's like blurry lines around all of this, but it's mostly about examining your own intentions, because some people might do that because they genuinely want to raise awareness. I mean, it's problematic because of the photos themselves, but it might be that the intention for uploading that was to be like, come on, white friends, you should be out here protesting, right? And then that's a more understandable reason for doing it. But the reason we're saying don't do that is because people should remain anonymous at protests. Everyone, it's a dangerous thing to post a picture.
And also, there's some videos on YouTube on how to if you are going to take photos. There's like great videos, like Tara Rooney's channel does the fors and against of taking photos, but if you are going to take a photo and upload it, you should always be blanking out somebody's
faces.
And that is because we don't want people to get in trouble with the police, to be arrested because your photo was up there of them protesting and they were identified.
And this is about, again, learning and developing, but the first thing is just, what was your intention? Do you want people to applaud you for doing that? Is it about your ego or is it about the cause? So those are two terms that have been going around quite a lot recently, and I think they're really important to acknowledge that signing a petition, even though it feels like doing something, is actually not enough. I don't know, I've signed so many petitions recently, and you get the emails saying that they were brought up in Parliament and then they just dismiss them.
And I need to do some research, because I saw something today which was saying about change.org, which is what most of the petitions I've signed have come through. Actually, I'm talking about this and I haven't read it up because I just saw it before we started recording, but it was saying that they're just not recognised by government as much or not followed up by government as much. And basically said government need them to come through a governmental registered petition.
But I also don't understand the power of petitions anymore, because it seems like I've signed a few that were about COVID and how that needs to be dealt with. And they reached the amount to make it be talked about in Parliament, which means that there is enough people that want this thing to happen. But it seems like, well, in all these occasions, the government said, but here's why we're not going to listen to you. So again, that power. The petition doesn't actually affect change. It maybe makes them have to have a conversation about it, but there's got to be other things that you do alongside that. And I suppose it's also making sure that people are learning about it, so people are then following, and if they know that then the government didn't do anything with it, it's then like, okay, what can I do next, because I still care about this. Exactly. So we want to end, I guess, with tips, because we ourselves are sort of have been involved in activism but want to be better activists. I think you have some as well. Do you?
See,
So I've got 7 tips on how to get involved in activism, and you can pitch in where you like, Jess.
Sure, I will do.
Number 1, which I think we've said again this week and last week in our episode on white privilege, and this is not even the minimum. This is what everyone has to do to start, is educate yourself. There's no excuse for not having education. The information is blatant.
And then think about how can you support other people are educating, for example, your young people and people who maybe are illiterate, people who don't have access to social media. How can you help support other people around you who have different learning styles, people who have learning disabilities? How can you have supportive information to also respect that our community should know about what's happening in the world, and we don't need to censor from people just because they don't engage in learning in the same way as you do, for example.
I sent a thing to my brother and sister the other day that was about inclusive parents versus anti-racist parents. I would say my siblings are definitely both inclusive parents, whereas they the points here are is that they teach their kids that people matter more than their skin color. They make sure their kids' library is racially diverse. They share movies and shows featuring people of color with their kids. They talk about privilege and what it means. But that's, I think, the expected minimum. Anti-racist parents teach their kids that skin color deeply affects how people live. And it's not that it doesn't matter. It does affect how people live, and that we need to change that. They intentionally include books that go beyond slavery and the civil rights movement with their young people. They use media to point out examples of racism and stereotypes with their kids.
Yeah.
And they give children contextual examples of their privilege in action.
Perfect. And that's such a doable list as well.
Yeah,
that's a really achievable list.
Yeah.
And I think, great, absolutely. And I know I've seen some friends who have kids and they're like, right, okay, social media done for the day. I've got some anti-racist training to do with my kids. So work through it together. And kids are kind and open.
Kids love more than we do.
And they'll be getting more confused by hearing things and not being able to talk about it. So talk about it.
Exactly.
With that education, I think it's great to engage in your community, to engage in volunteering. So I think through my work, for example, I've worked with minority groups, a series of minority groups, and that is when I learnt about them, and I learnt about things that were impacting them. I learnt why the policies were not geared to support them. So if you don't know much about, or you're not as aware of your privilege, or you're not sure about, say, the experience of people who are homeless, like if you volunteer in a soup kitchen, you then get to have those conversations. You get to learn that person's story. You get to learn how society has not made it possible for them and why they are experiencing homelessness. So in a way, by getting involved with people who have less privilege than you, then you can hear from their stories, and that's a real human person in front of you telling you their story. And then that is when you're like, I can't not help them.
But that volunteering is also an active thing. It's beyond educating yourself. It's actually supporting charities that don't have the funds to pay you to do that position, but need support. And especially if you're someone who doesn't have funds to give, funds to spare, volunteering means that you are doing the work as well.
Absolutely.
I've got one here which it might at first sound like slacktivism, but I think it's important that we reframe it. Engage in the power of social media is point number 3 here. But that's not to say post stuff. That's to say use it to find and make connections with groups where you can have conversations and find ways to network and ways to engage in activity.
Yeah, and then create a campaign together.
Exactly.
Get out on the streets.
Exactly. So social media is using it as the tool that connects people as opposed to just a shout into the void.
Yeah, absolutely. This is interesting about if you need to, or do, get the media involved, get the press involved. And we've seen a perfect example of this week. There's been a collective of people who are alumni or current drama students, and they have been raising awareness and talking about and campaigning about systemic racism, institutional racism within drama schools in the UK. And just this morning we woke up to a video of them telling their stories and talking about their campaign and their work on BBC News, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And The Stage, which is a theatre media outlet, also reported their story. And through this is funny, like, because people have been having these conversations for years about racism within drama schools. And now, you know what, they've gone, we're taking it to the press.
Yeah.
And now those drama schools cannot ignore it because the BBC is now knocking on their door saying, what are you going to say about this? What are you going to do about this?
I saw a post today, the post of the video by one of those students who started it by saying 10 days. 10 days is all it took to make this change.
Yes, 10 days.
It's incredible. And that only happened because of organizing themselves together, working together during social distancing to put pressure on the institution.
And the steps of that was such things as we signed a letter to support, well, it's a letter of calling out what the drama schools have been involved in and their demands for what the drama school needs to do to make this change now.
Yeah.
And so we signed that letter, and we've just seen it go. It started off in Instagram with one student who has been doing Instagram stories talking about their conversations back and forth with the drama school, or lack of conversations. And so amazing. In 10 days now, the BBC reporting on it, and people are learning about it, and people cannot hide or run anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, they know who the people are, and then if they do run and hide, then you're going to look pretty stupid if you don't speak up and get involved.
I've got another one here, which is get creative. Use your personal talents to create your own unique form of activism. So for us, we're obviously using our podcasts to share information. Mm-hmm. We also are both theatre artists. So I've seen, for example, I went to see a show about refugees during the height of the refugee crisis, which hasn't gone away, by the way, everyone. We've just stopped talking about it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the show, everyone was given a postcard that was meant to be sent to your local MP with a stamp addressed on it. You just had to put your name on it and pop it in the mail. And for that company, by just doing their show, which in itself was raising awareness, but then giving an actionable thing that every audience member could do without any effort, at the end, they creatively used their talent to hopefully inspire some amount of change.
That's brilliant.
Yeah,
Very
I think
clever.
It's really incredible.
I suppose just to help people in that way, it's just like, here's your first helping hand.
Yes.
I would just say off the back of that, and another point about, like, for example, writing to your MP, writing to organisations. There's a lot of templates of letters, for example, to send out to the Department of Education as well. But I have seen now the copy and paste of the letter. You do need to personalise it still.
Yeah, or they can just root through them and see it's the same and not acknowledge
it. So do personalise your letters if you are going to be sending them out.
So my step further, Jess, when we do a show, is that you incorporate into the show a time of letter writing or postcard writing. You give them the thing, you give them the basics, but you make the room write it there and then with you. And then even collect them and mail them yourself.
Yeah, and then I think that also brings that confidence and that feeling of what you get when you come together as a community, that like fire inside of you, that you've all done that together.
Yeah.
Also working together, raise money.
Yeah.
Everything just needs money. So fundraise, like maybe you could hold a little auction, maybe you use entertainment.
Yeah.
Maybe do a crowdfunder.
Yeah.
Think of how you can help, because we haven't all got the money at our disposal, but how can you help fundraise? Because, for example, all charities, especially now during COVID, are struggling even more.
Yeah.
But there's so many different causes to donate to. There's, as we can see, for example, that there's the funerals of people who have experienced black violence and have died at the hands of, say, the police. There's also mental health charities. There's the organisations, there's the movements who all need funds to keep running. So
I would say, though, money huge, but also investigate your charities before you donate to them. Make sure that they are a reputable charity, that don't, through their actions, oppress another group. Like, for example, everyone's always giving to the Salvation Army, and the Salvation Army are extremely anti-LGBTQIA+. And so that is not a charity that I would recommend that you give to. So just see that if their actions are as reputable, and also look at where the money goes when you do give it to them. How much goes into running of the company, how much goes back to the community. Yeah.
And also, what was it that I saw where Virgin were then still getting a big cut of it?
Yeah, of course.
So just check. We don't want... Virgin do not need no more money.
Yeah, check where the money is going.
Also, Virgin, give it out.
I've got one here that says, live it, which is conscious activism is activism by doing. Think of it as leading by example. So this, for example, if you're thinking in the environmental world, if you're campaigning for change, as much as you deciding to not drive your car as much doesn't make huge impact on the world, find other ways to not be a hypocrite.
Yeah.
If you're a white person part of the Black Lives Matter movement and you went to a protest but didn't address casual racism in your office space, that's not living it.
Yeah.
We can all be better. We can all make mistakes.
Absolutely.
But wherever possible, it's got to be part of your life ethos.
So bringing in protest as another form of activism there. But like Emma's just said, like, it's making sure, or looking at hypocrisies that may exist, and that's fine if you find them, but then it's about addressing them.
Yeah.
For example, just the cheeky little things that I still buy in plastic while saying plastic's rubbish.
Yeah.
Just because I've got
and
some
your
luxury
shower
goods.
bad habits.
Oh my god, my awful shower habits. But also, if you are going to go to a protest, check protest etiquette.
Yeah.
So specifically, like at the Black Lives Matters protest, if you are a white person and you are saying the chants, like some of the chants such as "I can't breathe," that is not your place to be saying.
Yeah.
The fist, raising your fist. Think like your reason to be there is to protect the black protesters, to protect people of colour, and to stand in solidarity with them, to protect, like, do you need to stand in between black protester and the police?
Yeah.
So what are you doing there? And then again, just checking photo etiquette, stuff like this, and understanding why you're there.
Yeah, your motivation.
Yeah, your motivation for being there. But do take with that I suppose the energy that comes from a protest, and realising how important this is, and also taking in how much this like how many people are in these streets caring. Like, you're not just, so if you are feeling like, oh, but nothing's gonna happen, there's not enough people caring about this, if you're experiencing thousands of people at that protest, for example, then know that this is so important. It does matter.
Yeah, exactly. My last point here is recharge, but don't stop. So protect your health and protect your mental health, because I even know for myself, there's been times where I've been so far down needs to change hole, where you stop protecting yourself, or you stop, like, everything makes you angry, and that's not a place where you are healthy to support people. But don't put yourself in a position where you have to quit.
And I think, Emma, I've noticed a couple of these thoughts, such as, I don't deserve to sleep, though. I don't deserve to stop, because
gosh, yes, that's bad.
No, I just thought, hearing people who are saying, look, I can't sleep right now, and I'm not going to sleep until my rights I've got my rights. And so then I had this thought, I was like, oh, I'm really tired. I was like, but so what if you're tired? I was like, you're privileged to be able to go to bed. And I've just had those thoughts, and I noticed them, and I was like, Jess, if you are not healthy, then you're not going to be...
you can't do anything if you don't have your health.
So I'm just saying, if any listeners are feeling guilty for, I don't know, having food on their plate, for having those privileges, to be able to go and have a nice relaxing bath at the end of the day, don't take that as the guilt. Like,
feel the guilt, acknowledge where it's coming from, and then do something.
Yeah,
but don't stop yourself from, like, I don't think
people
want you to have less rights.
Yeah.
That you having your rights is important as well. We just want,
like,
other people to have the same safety in their life.
Because I saw something which was like, in itself, privilege is not the bad thing if you have it, but it's about how you use your privilege. Yeah. So yes, you have it. Yeah. But how do you use it?
Yeah. So, exactly.
Yeah. So thanks, listeners, for joining us for our episode on activism. Yeah. Do you want to reach out to us and talk about anything? Do you want to have any conversations? And let us know if there's anything you'd like Fluff to get involved with. Can we support you with any campaigns that are being set up?
Exactly.
Can we support you with any movement work?
How can Fluff come together to affect positive change? We have our platform, but we're just two people in a flat, and we know that we've got this community together. So if you have anything that you're extremely passionate about and want us to throw our weight into, we are happy to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And as always, our platform of Fluff is here. If anybody would like to record some material and put it out through Fluff, we're not receiving any money from Fluff at the moment, so it's not like we're going to be making money out that material, but we are offering it our platform to BIPOC people. If you want to talk about anything, share anything, or maybe you want to sing and put your beautiful artwork out there, you can get in touch with us at Fluff Creatives on Instagram or Twitter, or our cheeky little email address, fluffinquiries@gmail.com.
Yay!
Cheerio!
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to rate and subscribe.
We're excited to welcome you into our Fluff family and bring you some gorgeous sparkles every Friday.